She walked in on her mate proposing to another woman, while still bonded to her. The moon hung low over the kingdom of Alaris, silver light spilling across the jagged cliffs and the dense forests below. Desperation. The citadel rose like a shadowed crown above the city, its spires glinting faintly in the night, and the wind whispered secrets of ancient power through its stone corridors. Within those halls, Alara moved quietly, her heart heavy and her thoughts tangled like the roots of the old forest outside. She had waited years for this night, imagining every detail with a yearning that burned inside her. Desperation. Alara's bond with Kale was not like ordinary love. It was a connection older than the oldest tales, forged in childhood promises and sealed in blood magic by the Moonweaver, the spectral sage who lingered at the edge of dreams. Their bond was invisible to all but them, a thread of fire that pulsed with their emotions, echoing each heartbeat and whispering each fear. To lose it would be to lose herself. And yet tonight a chill warned her that something terrible was about to unravel. She passed through the corridors silently, her fingers brushing against the cold stone walls. The halls were alive with the murmur of servants and the soft glow of lanterns, but her ears only heard the drumming of her own pulse. Russ. She had waited for this moment. Kale's return from the northern wars, when the banners of the citadel were still rippling in the wind, and the frost of winter had yet to thaw. She imagined the grand hall filled with nobles, Kale kneeling before her, his eyes alight with love and devotion. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw when she entered the hall. Kale was on one knee, the candlelight casting sharp shadows across his face, but the eyes that should have met hers were fixed on another. Lady Seraphine, elegant and poised, held her hand out toward him, her lips curved in a victorious smile. The air seemed to shatter around Alara, and the bond between her and Kale flared violently, a burning echo of confusion, hurt, and fury. For a heartbeat, she could not breathe.
Her feet felt rooted to the cold floor as though the stone itself had betrayed her. Kale's voice, soft and warm to anyone else, cut her like a blade.
Seraphine, will you accept? Alara's knees weakened. The threads of fire in her chest twisted painfully, whispering of betrayal and unfulfilled promises.
She remembered the nights when Kale had traced her hand, eyes bright with silent promises, when they had shared secrets that no one else could know. The bond had always been theirs alone, sacred and unbroken. And now, in this cruel twist of fate, it seemed as fragile as mist in the wind. She stepped forward almost instinctively, and Kale's eyes finally found hers. In the dim candlelight she saw a flicker of surprise, and then something darker. Hesitation, conflict, a shadow that she could not name. The bond pulsed in response, throbbing with tension. It whispered warnings of danger, of choices yet to be made, and of the darkness that lingered in the corners of Kale's heart.
Alara, he breathed. But the words sounded strange to her ears, weighed down by secrets she could not yet know.
Alara forced herself to speak, though her voice trembled with hurt. Kale, what is this? Kale rose slowly, as if the weight of the world pressed upon his shoulders. He looked at Seraphine, who gave him a sly, confident smile, and then back at Alara. His eyes, those eyes she had trusted for so long, were full of shadows. Alara, it's not what it seems, he said. But the words rang hollow. Alara felt her heart crack, even as the bond between them pulsed with anger and longing. The fire in the bond called to Kale, a reminder that they were bound in a way that could not be undone by politics, desire, or fear. Yet he seemed torn, struggling against forces she could not yet see. She turned away, the pain in her chest raw and suffocating. She did not flee. She could not yet, but she retreated to the quiet corridors of the citadel, her mind a storm of sorrow and disbelief. The bond pulsed wildly, whispering her fears, her anger, and her love, all tangled together. The threads burned against her skin, reminding her that she was not alone, even if Kale's actions seemed to deny that truth.
In the stillness of her chamber, Alara's thoughts raced.
How could Kale kneel before another when they were bound?
What hidden power or curse could draw him away from her so completely?
She had heard whispers of such forces in old tales, of magic that could twist the hearts of kings, nobles, and warriors alike. Perhaps Kale's blood carried an ancient mark, or perhaps this Seraphine was more than she appeared. The night deepened, and the shadows of the citadel seemed to lean closer, as if listening to her despair. Alara pressed her hands to her chest, trying to calm the fire of the bond that flared with each thought of Kale's betrayal. She did not want vengeance. She wanted understanding, clarity, and the restoration of what had been taken from her. Yet the bond warned her. The threads of fire whispered that the night was only the beginning of a far greater storm.
Unable to rest, Elara dressed in a cloak of deep midnight blue and slipped from the citadel into the forest that bordered the city. The Moonweaver had told her once that the forests held truth for those willing to listen, that the spirits of the trees and stones could reveal what even the bravest heart might hide.
The snow-crusted path crunched beneath her boots, and the air was sharp and fragrant with pine and frost. Alara closed her eyes and let the bond guide her. It pulsed like a warning in a compass all at once, pulling her toward the heart of the forest. There, beneath the silver glow of the moon, she found the Moonweaver waiting. The spectral figure shimmered in the air, robes flowing like mist, and eyes glinting with knowledge older than time itself.
Elara,
the Moonweaver said, voice like the rustle of leaves.
The bond is not broken. It has been tested.
Elara's voice trembled.
Kael, he proposed to her. While we were still bound. How can this be?
The Moonweaver's gaze softened, yet remained sharp.
The bonds of fate are not always free from darkness. Kael carries a weight not of his own choosing.
There is a shadow in his blood, a curse that tests the heart and loyalty of those bound by true magic. You must see it, feel it, and confront it, not with anger alone, but with the strength of the bond you share. Elara's chest tightened. The thought of a curse, a magic so strong it could influence Kale's actions, filled her with equal parts hope and fear. And she wanted to believe that he was not lost to her, yet every heartbeat screamed of betrayal. You must return, the Moonweaver continued, for the threads of fate are moving.
The night you have witnessed is only the first ripple of the storm. Choices will come, hearts will be tested, and one bond must endure, or all will fall.
Alara nodded, though her hands shook. She left the Moonweaver beneath the silver trees and made her way back to the citadel, each step heavier than the last. The halls were quiet now, as if holding their breath, waiting for the confrontation that would come at dawn. She knew she could not hide from Kale forever. The bond pulsed, reminding her of its presence, of love that still burned even in the shadow of betrayal. As she approached the grand hall once more, she paused, drawing a deep breath. Her eyes caught the remnants of candlelight on the polished floor, the faint scent of lavender that Seraphine always wore, and the echo of Kale's voice. The threads of the bond tightened around her heart, whispering both warning and hope. Kale would see her soon. He would feel the bond flare and know that it was not broken, that their connection remained, and she would confront him, not with hatred alone, but with the courage and fire that only true love tested and wounded could summon. The night outside the citadel deepened. Winds howled against the towers, carrying the scent of pine, frost, and distant storm. Somewhere, unseen, the pulse of old magic stirred. and the first hints of a curse long buried awakened in the shadows.
Elara's fingers curled around the edges of her cloak, and her eyes, bright with hurt and determination, fixed on the door ahead.
She would face Kale, she promised herself. And whatever came next, betrayal, magic, or fate, she would not turn away. Pray. And then, in the hush of the grand hall, as the last shadows of night clung to the stone walls, the bond flared once more, not with anger alone, but with a warning, something ancient, something powerful, stirring in the dark.
Elara stepped forward. The world seemed to hold its breath. The night was only beginning. The first light of dawn barely touched the citadel towers when Elara withdrew to her chamber, her mind still burning with the vision of Kale on one knee before another woman.
The corridors of the palace were quiet now, but the echoes of that moment had engraved themselves in her chest, pulsing like a heartbeat she could not calm. The bond she shared with Kale throbbed against her skin, a painful reminder that their connection had not been severed, yet was being tested in ways she could not understand. Elara paced the floor, her hands pressed to the cold stone walls as if she could draw strength from them. Inspiration. She thought of the Moonweaver's warning, that Kale carried a weight not entirely his own, a shadow in his bloodline that could twist desire and loyalty. Brace. She had heard stories of such magic in old tales whispered by the elders, of kings, queens, and warriors whose hearts were not truly their own, compelled by ancient curses or restless spirits. Perhaps this was the truth. Perhaps this was the beginning of something far larger than she had imagined. Unable to endure the silence any longer, she donned a cloak and slipped from the citadel once again. Inspiration. The forest waited for her like a living thing, its frost-covered branches glinting in the pale morning light. Snow crunched softly beneath her boots, and the air was sharp and biting, scented with pine and wet earth. Every step she took seemed guided by the bond, which pulsed like a lantern in the dark, tugging her toward understanding. Deeper into the forest she went, toward a clearing where the Moonweaver had promised that answers awaited. The spectral sage was already there, their figure hovering between reality and mist, robes flowing like liquid shadow. Their eyes, ageless and knowing, fixed on Elara the moment she appeared.
Elara, the Moonweaver said softly, their voice echoing like the wind through the trees, you seek clarity where only courage can lead. The bond you share with Kale is strong, but the forces around him are older than kingdoms, older than the mountains.
Bear. You must see clearly if you are to protect it. Alara's voice shook. Ah, He kneels before her, while we are bonded. I do not understand. If the bond is real, why does he choose her? The Moonweaver's gaze softened, yet remained sharp. Choice is not always free. Kale is ensnared by a curse woven into the blood of his line. It tests loyalty, bending hearts towards others to see if bonds will endure. The question is not whether he loves you, but whether his heart can resist what the curse demands. Alara's chest tightened at the words. She had always believed that love, true love, could conquer any obstacle, but now she wondered if even the bond they shared was vulnerable to forces beyond their control. The threads of fire that connected them pulsed, whispering of anguish, confusion, and longing, urging her forward. Can it be broken? She asked in a whisper, almost afraid to hear the answer.
The Moonweaver shook their head.
No. Bonds of this kind are eternal, but they are tested.
The test can bring destruction or awakening. You must return to the citadel, for the curse does not rest, and it will move to claim what it desires.
Elara nodded, determination flaring in her chest. She would not allow the bond to falter.
Whatever darkness lingered in Kale's heart, whatever force had drawn him to Seraphine, she would face it. She would fight for the bond that had been forged through promises, magic, and shared dreams. Inspiration. Kale, meanwhile, wrestled with his own torment in the grand hall of the citadel. The candlelight flickered across the stone walls, casting long shadows as he paced. The image of Alara's eyes, full of hurt and disbelief, haunted him. The bond between them burned like a fire he could not escape, whispering her emotions into his mind, tugging him back even as the curse within him called for something else. He had always known of the curse, a shadow passed down through generations of his family. It had slept quietly for years, dormant, until the moment he returned from the northern wars. And now awakened, it twisted his desires, urging him towards Seraphine, who, unlike Alara, did not question, did not resist, and radiated ambition that aligned with the curse's hunger. Kale's heart ached with confusion. He loved Alara, had always loved her, but the curse whispered in the quietest moments, pulling at the edges of his reason. Desperation. Every glance at Seraphine's smile felt like an intrusion, yet every heartbeat toward Alara felt strained with guilt and fear. The bond flared violently whenever he thought of her, and he hated himself for it. He sank into a chair, head in hands, as the memories of their shared childhood flashed before him. The promise they had made under the silver light of the moon, the laughter and tears they had shared. Breath. The first time their hands had brushed and the thread of fire had sparked between them. He could not deny the bond. It was alive, undeniable, a living reminder of what was real and true. And yet, the curse whispered still, insistent and dark, promising that only by yielding could he survive. Could he achieve greatness? Could he secure a future that was otherwise impossible? Brrr. Kale's chest tightened as he struggled against it, each breath heavy with the weight of choice he did not want to make. Alara returned to the citadel just as the sun rose, washing the stone towers in pale gold. The grand hall awaited, silent but for the faint echoes of past events. She paused at the entrance, her cloak brushing the floor, and closed her eyes. The bond flared violently at her hesitation, reminding her that Kale would sense her presence, would feel the pulse of her anger, sorrow, and love. When she stepped inside, she found Kale waiting. Not on his knees, not with Seraphine's hand extended toward him, but standing tall, his face shadowed with guilt and fear. Seraphine had not yet appeared, but her influence lingered in the cold tension of the room. The bond pulsed between Alara and Kale, a silent storm that both bound them and warned of danger. "Alara," Kale began, voice low, careful. Alara's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw herself into his arms or strike him for the betrayal she had felt.
Instead, she let the words of the Moonweaver guide her. "Kale," she said softly but firmly. "The bond. It is real. I feel it."
But what has come between us? What is this darkness in you?
Kale looked at her, his eyes pleading, torn.
Breath. It is not me, not entirely. There is a curse, a shadow that moves through my blood. It seeks to twist my heart, to test what is true. I cannot explain why, Seraphine. I did not want this, Alara. I never stopped loving you. Alara felt the threads of fire tighten, the bond pulsing with the truth of his words. And yet, the ache of seeing him kneel for another still lingered, raw and painful. "Then why?" she whispered. "Why does it feel as though you are being pulled away from me?" Kale's hands trembled. "Because the curse chooses. It wants what is not free, what is most sacred. I am not strong enough to fight it alone. But with you, I might survive it." Alara stepped closer, her eyes shining with a mix of hurt and hope. Then we fight it together, she said. Whatever this curse is, whatever darkness it brings, we will face it. The bond is ours. Not just magic, not just fate, but ours. Inspiration.
And I will not let it be broken. Kale reached for her hand, the bond flaring like a living flame between them.
It was painful and beautiful all at once, a reminder of the love they shared and the trials yet to come. Together, he whispered, voice raw.
But the castle held secrets beyond their love. In the shadowed corners of the grand hall, a faint light flickered. The last trace of the relic Seraphine had touched the night before.
Its broken fragments lay in the dark, humming with the strange ancient magic. The curse had been stirred, awakened by ambition and desire, and it was not content to remain dormant. As Elara and Kale stood together, hands clasped, the relic pulsed with a soft, menacing glow. A whisper echoed in the silence, low and seductive, calling Kale's name, promising power and desire if he would only yield. The threads of the bond flared violently, warning him of the danger, warning him of the choice to come. Elara felt the pulse of the curse as sharply as Kale did, a cold thrill running down her spine. Urbancy. She realized in that moment that their battle had only just begun. The bond, strong as it was, would be tested not by distance or fear alone, but by a darkness older than either of them. And the next choice Kale would make could determine whether the bond endured or shattered forever. The forest outside whispered with secrets, the wind carrying a chill that spoke of storms to come. Elara pressed her hand to Kale's chest, feeling the rapid pulse of both his heart and the bond that tied them together. The weight of what was to come pressed upon them both, but in that moment they found strength in each other, a flicker of defiance against the curse that sought to claim him. And somewhere in the shadow of the citadel the relic's glow pulsed again, brighter this time, and a voice murmured from the darkness, "Choose me, Kale, or lose her forever." The bond flared, a storm of fire and longing as Elara's eyes met Kale's. Their fate hung suspended, fragile as ice yet fierce as flame. The battle for his heart and their love was only beginning. The citadel slept under a sky the color of bruised velvet, streaked with silver clouds. Inside, its stone corridors were quiet yet heavy with unspoken tension. Elara moved like the shadow herself, her cloak brushing against the cold walls as she approached the moon chamber, a place that had long been whispered about in tales of kings and queens, magic and shadow. It was said that the chamber held echoes of the past, and that the threads of fate themselves could be felt there. Tonight, those threads pulsed with the weight of destiny, and Elara felt every one of them. The bond she shared with Kale burned between them, a living flame of love and anger, hope and despair. Every step she took toward the chamber made it flare hotter, warning her that Kale's heart was in turmoil, caught between the pull of the curse and the truth of their bond. Bursting. She had promised herself that she would not let fear control her, yet the ache in her chest made it hard to breathe. When she entered the chamber, the first thing she noticed was the darkness. Shadows seemed to gather in the corners, curling along the walls and ceiling as if alive, whispering in voices too soft to understand. And in the center stood Kale, his posture rigid, his eyes locked on the floor. The air was thick with tension, and Elara could feel the bond vibrating with both longing and pain. "Kale," she said softly, her voice echoing against the stone, "you cannot face this alone."
He looked up, and she saw the torment in his eyes.
I have tried, he admitted, voice low.
But the curse! It will not let me think clearly.
Bert, it twists desire, distorts what I feel, and tempts me with what I should not want. I thought I could resist it, but His hands trembled as he reached toward her, and the bond flared violently, pulling him back toward her. Aberration. But every time I see Seraphine, it feels as if I am being dragged against my will.
Alara stepped closer, placing her hand gently over his. The fire of the bond surged, warm and painful at once, echoing every thought and emotion between them.
Then feel this, she said softly. Feel me.
Aberration. Feel the bond. We are stronger than this curse, Bear. We always have been. Kale closed his eyes, letting the connection wash over him. Aberration. For a moment, the chaos in his heart seemed to still, soothed by the certainty of Alara's presence. But the shadows in the chamber shivered, as if aware that their hold on him was weakening. Aberration.
From the corner of the room, a soft, almost imperceptible light glimmered.
The remnants of the broken relic Seraphine had touched earlier pulsed faintly, feeding the curse that lingered in Kale's blood. Alara's eyes narrowed as she recognized it, the source of the darkness that had tried to claim him. Perhaps. She had no choice but to confront it, to face the forbidden magic that had long been whispered about in tales of the old kingdom. "You must let me destroy it," she said.
The curse cannot hold him if the relic is broken completely, but it will be dangerous.
I will need to use magic that is not meant for mortals, magic that may leave a mark on me that cannot be healed. Kale's hand tightened around hers. Breaths. "Then do it," he said, voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "I do not care what it costs."
If it can save us, if it can save the bond, I trust you.
Alara drew a deep breath and began. She knelt in the center of the chamber, tracing intricate symbols in the air with her fingers, drawing on the magic of her ancestors.
Aberration. The fire of the bond flared higher as her power built, weaving a lattice of energy that surrounded the relic's fragments. Shadows writhed in the corners, drawn to the power she summoned, and whispers of temptation tried to pull at Kale's mind. The curse, sensing its hold weakening, began to lash out. The shadows surged forward, dark and twisting, as if the very air itself had turned against them. Kale felt the pull as sharply as Alara did, the remnants of the curse tempting him with whispers of power, ambition, and desire.
Everything Seraphine had promised, everything he should not want but was tempted to.
His breath came fast, and his hands shook as he fought against it, the bond flaring and burning with his effort. Alara's eyes shone with determination. "Do not listen!" she shouted, voice ringing through the chamber. "The curse is not your heart!"
You are stronger than this. Kale gritted his teeth, fighting the seductive pull of the darkness.
He focused on the bond, on Alara's presence, on the warmth and fire that tied them together. Slowly the whispers began to fade, replaced by the roar of the bond, the undeniable truth that they belonged to each other. The shadows recoiled, hissing and twisting, but Alara's power did not falter. She reached out, hand glowing with ancestral magic, and touched the largest fragment of the relic. The relic shuddered and then cracked, light spilling from its center like a sunrise breaking through storm clouds. The shadows screeched and dissolved into mist, and the curse recoiled, unable to survive without its anchor. Aberration. Kale fell to his knees, gasping, but the bond held fast, strong and pure. Alara rose, drained but resolute, and placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "It is done," she said, voice trembling with relief. "The curse cannot touch you now!" Aberration. The bond is ours, not just by magic, but by choice. Kale looked up at her, eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper, something that went beyond words. You saved me," he whispered. Saved us. But the chamber was not silent for long. From the shadows of the broken relic, a figure began to emerge, tall and formless, its voice like the wind through the trees, yet sharper, cutting through the warmth that had begun to fill the room. Aberration.
Fools! It hissed. You think destroying the fragments ends me. I am older than kingdoms, older than the bond you cherish. Your defiance only awakens me further.
Brr. Kale rose to his feet, placing himself between Elara and the shadow, though his hands shook. "We are not afraid of you," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. Brr. "You have no power over us together." The shadow twisted and coiled, a storm of darkness that filled the chamber with cold and fear. "Together," it hissed. Inspiration. Together is fragile. Love is fragile. Inspiration. And yet, it is the very thing that makes your defiance delicious. Inspiration.
Alara's hand tightened around Kael's.
The bond flared violently, a blaze of fire and warmth, wrapping them both in strength. "We are not fragile," she said, voice steady. "Our bond is more than magic. It is trust, loyalty, and choice." "You will not take him from me!" The shadow recoiled, twisting, and then vanished in a whisper of smoke, leaving the chamber silent except for the heavy breaths of the two of them. But even as relief washed over them, both could feel it. The darkness had not truly been defeated. It lingered in the corners, in the whispers of the air, in the pulse of the bond itself. Kale sank to the floor, leaning against Elara.
I do not know if I can ever face such power again,
He admitted, voice low.
I feel as though the darkness is part of me, even now.
Elara stroked his hair gently, her own body still trembling from the exertion of magic. "It tried to claim you because it feared the bond," she said softly.
Brr.
and it failed. That makes you stronger, Kale, not weaker.
We face it together and nothing can break what we have. But the bond flared again, violently, unexpectedly, and Kale's eyes widened. Brr. Something stirred in the threads that connected them, not with warmth or love, but with a pulse of warning. The shadow may have left the chamber, but it had not left entirely. Somewhere, in the heart of the citadel, or perhaps beyond it, the darkness lingered, waiting for another chance to tempt, to test, to destroy. Elara and Kale rose together, hands clasped, knowing that the night had changed them both. They had faced a curse that threatened the very core of their hearts, and they had survived, but the taste of danger lingered, sharp and bitter. Kale looked at her, eyes full of unspoken words. "Whatever comes next," he said, voice soft. "We face it together, but I fear the darkness. It will not give up so easily." Elara nodded, determination shining through the weariness in her eyes. "Then we will be ready," she said.
No matter what it takes! The bond is stronger than any shadow!
And if it tests us again, we will not falter. And yet, as they left the moon chamber, the citadel seemed to shift around them. A faint pulse of light flickered in the distance. Remnants of the relic, or perhaps something older, watching and waiting. The bond flared again, urgent and warning, as if whispering, the true battle had only just begun. Somewhere, deep in the shadows, a voice murmured, soft but sharp, full of intent. "You may have survived, but the game is far from over. The bond will be tested, break, and only one choice can save it, or destroy it forever."
Elara tightened her hand around Kale's, heart pounding as they stepped into the night beyond the moon chamber.
The storm of magic and shadow was not over, and the threads of fate were winding toward a new, darker path. Their love, their bond, had survived the first trial, but the shadows whispered of greater dangers yet to come. And in that silence, both knew The true test of their hearts and of the bond that tied them had only begun. The citadel trembled under a wind that carried whispers of ancient power. Even in daylight the halls seemed to shiver, shadows lingering longer than they should, and the air was thick with tension. Elara and Kale walked side by side through the grand corridors, hands clasped tightly, the threads of their bond pulsing like a living flame. They had survived the first trials of the curse, but neither of them could shake the feeling that something darker was still awake, watching, waiting.
Alara, Kale said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. I feel it.
The darkness, it has not gone.
It waits for the moment to strike again, stronger than before.
Elara nodded, determination in her gaze.
Then we face it, together. Whatever comes, we will not falter. We have the bond, and it is stronger than fear, stronger than shadow.
Their steps led them to the highest tower of the citadel, the Spire of Stars, a place where the wind cut like knives, and the sky met the stone in a swirl of clouds and mist. Here, the relic's remnants had begun to gather, drawn to the energy of the bond, forming a faint pulsing light that seemed almost alive. The shadows whispered from its depths, tempting Kale with visions of power, comfort, and promises of ease.
It was the ultimate test, a final choice that could either forge their love anew or shatter it forever. Kyle stopped, gazing at the swirling fragments. I feel it, Elara!
Promises things I cannot ignore. But I also feel you, our bond, and I know that is real. Stronger than all else. His hands clenched into fists, trembling. I do not want to fail you. I cannot. Elara stepped closer, placing both hands on his chest. The fire of the bond surged between them, brighter and warmer than ever.
You will not fail,
she said firmly. The bond is not just magic, Kale. It is choice. It is trust. It is love. And it will guide you through this, as long as you do not let fear or shadow rule your heart. The shadows began to coil more violently around the fragments, twisting into shapes that were almost human, almost familiar. They whispered lies, accusing Kale of weakness, promising that only by abandoning the bond could he be free, strong, and safe. But Kale, feeling the warmth of Alara's hands and the pulse of the bond, resisted. I choose you, he whispered, voice low but unwavering. I choose us. I will not let this darkness take you, or us. The bond flared with brilliance, stretching like threads of fire across the room. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, but the relic fragments trembled and began to vibrate. Elara closed her eyes and drew deeply on her magic, her ancestors' power flowing through her, combining with the bond itself. Symbols of light and strength traced themselves in the air around her, weaving a lattice that pulsed with warmth and protection. Kale raised his hands, joining her in the effort, channeling the strength of their connection into the heart of the relic. The fragments shuddered violently, light spilling from them in bursts like miniature suns, scattering shadows that tried to cling to the walls. The wind outside the tower howled, whipping at their cloaks and hair, carrying the sound of battle that was not between armies, but between hearts, love, and darkness itself. The shadow at the heart of the fragments began to take form, a massive, swirling figure of black smoke and whispered lies. It towered over them, its voice a hiss that filled the chamber. You think love can defeat me? You are fools. Barris. I am older than kings, older than kingdoms. You cannot resist me. Kale stepped forward, voice steady and strong.
We do not need to defeat you alone. Together we are stronger than you.
Bear. Your power means nothing against a bond that is chosen, nurtured, and true. Alara raised her hands, letting the threads of the bond shine like a shield around them. Inspiration. It is not your power that rules this heart, she said. It is love, Kale, and it is stronger than fear or shadow. The shadow recoiled, shrieking in anger at smoky tendrils lashing at them. But the bond flared brighter, wrapping around Kale and Alara like chains of light, anchoring them to each other. The fragments of the relic trembled one final time and then shattered completely, sending a wave of golden light through the chamber. The shadows screamed and dissolved, leaving nothing but silence. Kale sank to his knees, trembling, but the bond kept him grounded. Inspiration.
Alara knelt beside him, holding his hands. "It's over," she whispered.
Brr.
"The darkness cannot touch us anymore. The bond is ours, and it is unbroken."
Kale looked into her eyes, the weight of the trials they had faced reflected in his gaze.
I was weak, he admitted.
I let the curse tempt me, even for a moment. But I see now,
Our bond cannot be broken by fear or shadow, only by choice, and I will always choose you. Inspiration.
Alara pressed her forehead against his. And I choose you, KL.
Bird. Not because of magic, not because of fate, but because my heart belongs to you.
the wind outside the tower shifted, carrying with it a sense of calm that had not been felt for years.
The citadel itself seemed to breathe, the stones humming faintly as though acknowledging the victory of love and courage over shadow and curse. But even in that moment of triumph, Alara could feel a change within herself. The magic she had wielded, the power she had drawn from her ancestors, and the bond left a mark on her spirit. Inspiration. She felt stronger, yes, but also more aware. Aware of the responsibilities that came with such power and of the dangers that still lingered in the world beyond the citadel walls. Kale wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. Bears. We are different now, he said softly. Not weaker, not fearful, stronger, because we faced the darkness together. And whatever comes next, we face it together. Inspiration. Alara rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Yes, she whispered. Brr.
Together, the citadel's towers caught the first rays of morning sun, bathing the stone in gold and silver. The darkness that had haunted them seemed to shrink with each passing moment, retreating into memory.
Inspiration. And for the first time in weeks, Alara felt hope bloom in her chest, a quiet certainty that the bond they shared was unbreakable, not just by magic, but by love, trust, and choice. Kael looked out over the edge of the spire of stars, the wind tugging at his hair. Berg. I can see the future now, he said. Not the curse, not the shadows.
Only us! Only the bond!
Inspiration, and it is stronger than I ever imagined. Alara smiled, a soft, genuine smile that lit her face. Breath. Then let us live that future, she said, not fearing what might come, but embracing what we have now. Brr.
The bond is ours, Kale, and it always will be. They stood together on the tower, the wind wrapping around them like a cloak, the sun rising behind them, casting long golden beams across the kingdom.
The trials had changed them, shaped them, tempered them like steel forged in fire, but it had also strengthened the love they shared. Brr. And though shadows might linger in distant corners, though fate might test them again, Kale and Alara had proven that the bond they shared was more powerful than any curse, stronger than fear, and eternal in its truth. Alara rested her head against Kale's shoulder once more, closing her eyes, feeling the warmth of the bond wrap around them. We are ready for whatever comes next, she said softly. Barup. Kale nodded, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Always, he whispered. Brr. And in that golden dawn, the citadel seemed to smile, the wind carrying a promise of peace, courage, and love that no shadow could ever destroy. The bond had been reforged, stronger than ever, tempered by the courage of two hearts that refused to falter.
Together, Kale and Elara stepped forward, ready to face the world, a world that would no longer test their bond, for it had already proven its strength against shadow, temptation, and the darkest of curses.
The story of their love, their courage, and their unbreakable bond would be told for generations, a legend of hearts that chose each other, even when the darkness seemed unstoppable. And somewhere in the distance, the mountains and forest echoed with the quiet certainty that love, chosen and true, would always triumph over darkness. The citadel, once heavy with shadow and fear, now stood bathed in light, a monument to courage, redemption, and the enduring power of a bond that no curse could ever break. Elara and Kale, side by side, felt it, a quiet, steady pulse that would guide them through all the days to come. And for the first time since the shadow had awoken, they truly believed in the future they would face together.